Okay, we're here.
Hey everybody! So a couple hours ago, me and Gojin went to theaters to go see Shin Kamen Rider, and I say we both pretty much like it, but I know Gojin flat says, "Oh, I fucking love it. Worship the ground I walks upon," you know?
Yeah, I really did. The movie, like, I was expecting good since, one, I'm a big Kamen Rider fan. Second, I'm a big fan of Hideaki Anno. Third, it's a part of the Shin Japan Heroes Universe, which has been really good thus far. And I was still blown away with how fucking good this movie was. And first thing I want to say, on one of the things that makes this special for me, outside of the fact that it's just a beautiful movie overall, I want to mention this is not only my first Kamen Rider movie I've seen in a movie theater, but my first foreign film in general in the theater, which is pretty neat. Which is a pretty neat experience, seeing a different country style of film on the big screen and seeing other people there who are Kamen Rider fans too. Given how we didn't have this big marketing geared towards it since it's a limited run, and I have to say, yeah, this definitely, I am very satisfied with my experience with this movie.
Yeah, I had a couple issues with the reserved ticketing spots, but everyone kept moving around in my theater. I guess trying to figure out where the hell they're supposed to be going. But other than that, yeah, this was my first time going also, and I'll admit I not much of a Kamen Rider fan. I think I only seen those movies I did with you back in that half-assed review of mine from the '90s.
Yeah, you
Um,
did.
but yeah, I did really like this movie a lot. I don't know how faithful it is to the original Kamen Rider show, but for what it was, I really did enjoy it. The character was pretty good, and the music was pretty good overall, and so was the action.
Yeah, something I want to mention in terms of being faithful. I'm a big Kamen Rider fan, but something I will admit, I have not watched the original show from 1971 yet, since it is long. It's nearly 100 episodes, so it's more of a commitment than most. But I do want to see it eventually, and I did do my research, and from my research, like the other Shin Japan Hero Universe projects, this is a reimagining of the original show and the manga based on it, which, in my opinion, I think they did really good from what I know, because I do have a surface knowledge on the original 71 show, and I know quite a bit about the manga. Like, I've seen the film Kamen Rider the First from the early 2000s, which also took a lot from the manga adaptation of the 1971 TV show of Kamen Rider. And this seems to share some similarities to that, but while I liked the movie Kamen Rider the First, this one, I think, did an even better job at taking elements from the TV show and the manga based on it. And as a whole, it's definitely a lot better in it. The story, I gotta say, like, I know a lot of dipshits here in the West are gonna be like, oh, it's just Power Rangers. It's for little kids, even though this is not for little kids.
It
Pretty
came
sure.
out 20 years before Power Rangers was even a goddamn thing.
Exactly. And Power Rangers takes footage from another Japanese franchise that shares a universe with Kamen Rider, which Kamen Rider predates that too. And the thing is, first of all, this movie's not made for kids. It's probably going to be rated R once it gets a rating here in the United States, given it's PG-12 in Japan, and PG-12 is a much bigger deal than even old school PG-13, as I stated. And also, there's a lot of drama that goes on. Like, you have this big, heavy use of dialogue that Anno usually injects in his movies. Like, if you've seen Shin Godzilla, Shin Ultraman, or even Evangelion, you'll know what I'm talking about, that there is a lot of works here. But I think Anno knows how to do this. Like, for example, in terms of stuff like exposition, I know there's a stigma to that word, but you can do exposition right, and you can do exposition wrong. Here, this does it right, because, for example, we're kind of dropped into Takashi Hongo's shoes in a way that he's just a normal guy who ended up getting in a situation where a group of basically Nazis kind of did all these experiments to his body, and he doesn't understand it. So Midorikawa, basically, she is a escaped member of Shocker. So it makes sense, since she is spending time with him, feeding him this knowledge of the place. It makes sense that we would be getting explained to it too. We are kind of in his shoes on gradually understanding what we're dealing with here. And it feels like an actual conversation rather than just a explanation to the audience, which also makes the more faster paced action work here too, considering in those scenes, like there's a lot of fights in this movie since there's clearly a lot of villains and Shocker, but again, they feel kind of like assassins for the corporation. And when it comes to the heavy use of dialogue, you feel like there's history between them going on throughout every fight scene that happens, and there's build up to it. Like, for example, the Wasp and Midorikawa.
You mean Cyrax?
Huh?
You mean Cyrax?
Yeah, she does look like Cyrax.
Like a live action version is ridiculous, but go on.
Yeah, but in terms of that, like, that relationship there, again, you didn't see their dynamic as friends in the past, but you didn't really need to, since, again, there was a lot going on that would show that there was a shared connection with them in the past, and it worked that Midorikawa would go to her to try to get her out of Gorgom's, and she was, not Gorgom, Gorgom's Kamen Rider Black, Shocker, to get her out of Shocker, considering she was the only one that she really considered a friend in that group. But she was so stuck in her old ways, she just stuck around. And even though she kind of played it off like she didn't consider the feelings, I think the actress did a great job here. As you could tell, like, when she was fighting Takashi Hongo as the rider, there was emotion there, how she was talking about how she wanted to make Midorikawa cry and such. She was trying to be loyal, but in a way where it would kind of bring Midorikawa to actually stay with Shocker instead. And at the end, she kind of sees her own doing. But again, yeah, that's why I feel the pacing of this movie is actually very good, because it blends that perfect mix of a lot of talking, a lot of explanations, a lot of fighting, a lot of story, and does it in a way where it all works. It's kind of similar to Shin Ultraman in that regard, though in this case, it may have done it even a bit better, in my opinion.
I haven't seen Shin Ultraman yet, so I can't say anything on that one.
Oh, you really should. Shin Ultraman's great. Just when it comes to Shin Ultraman, while they did something similar to this, I feel like in Shin Ultraman's case, they should have chose between using Mephiles or Zadab if they weren't gonna make it longer than it was. But as a whole, I thought that film really worked too.
But yeah, and I do like how Shocker and like each character has like their own way of like how they want to give the happiness to humanity when it's in reality just absolutely terrible, destructive things they want to do to the whole world.
Exactly. Like, it kind of fits into the whole Nazi narrative that this film went with, and not Nazi in the whole woke Hollywood type of way, but more so Nazi in actually threatening villain sort of way, like from what I heard, the original Shocker and Kamen Rider.
Yeah, and is it okay if I say this, or just would be spoilers?
No, you can say it. Go ahead.
I was gonna say, they're not done fighting Shocker yet. They were already talking about going after another one at the end of the movie, and that's what was happening. Probably the opening's going to be after was it the Cobra one, Augment, or whatever you're talking about that they were going after?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But
it's obvious G.N.O is going for a sequel for this movie.
Yeah, and he even said that he's wanting to do a sequel. And again, I want to kind of debunk this misconception. I've done it before, and I'm going to keep doing it whenever it's brought up. There's this misconception that the film bombed at the box office because it didn't perform as well as Shin Godzilla, a film that's on the list of top 100 best performing movies of all time. That's not a failure, Sonny. The film was profitable. Just because it did. Huh?
In Japan or in general?
In Japan. Because Japan's a much smaller country than the United States. But yeah, of course, like, just because it's not as profitable as one of the highest grossing movies ever made doesn't mean it's a flop.
Yeah, no.
The film made its money back, which is why it lasted longer than 4 weeks. It's a profitable movie, and a sequel is in talks as a result, so I think they will do it.
They probably will.
And another thing I kind of loved about this movie, and this might even be the highlight of it, because I know a lot of people are on about how the fight scenes and stuff like Kamen Rider are the best thing, which the fight scenes are definitely a great thing to watch because, well, a lot like Godzilla, Marvel, Star Wars, stuff like all this cool flashy fights definitely are going to be what draws you in, but you're obviously going to want more than just the basics of what draws you in. And in my opinion, the story and characters, I think, really, really were the best. May have actually been the best thing about this movie. Like, for example, there's a lot of moments that, despite all the action, there's a lot. It has its main focus is mostly on Takashi Hongo and Midorikawa's dynamic, and that's why after every fight, you have all these scenes of them simply walking, explaining their situation, them bonding, and as a result, while he was made to protect her, he starts to slowly fall in love with Midorikawa. And when, for example, her only friend ends up being killed due to not wanting to leave Shocker, he comforts her. One of my favorite moments is when they're in a room together and she's talking about how, oh, you stink, why do you always wear the same clothes every day? And then he smells himself. and then when her clothes change, he still, and this is on a more heartwarming angle. When she's changing her clothes, he looks away out of respect for her, but she's telling him he doesn't have to because she feels protected. She wants him to protect her in most cases. And I found that moment to be ridiculously heartwarming. Like every fight, and while there's a lot of them in this movie, feels like there's a buildup of trust going on there, which is one of the things that made me really fall in love with this movie. And on their dynamic, another thing that really, really popped out to me is you have this music that's almost slice of life-like. Like, I don't know for anybody who doesn't know this, but Shido Saigusu, the person who did the music for the entirety of Neon Genesis Evangelion, the live-action Attack on Titan films, all the Eva movies, Shin Godzilla, Shin Ultraman. He isn't the composer here. I can't remember the composer of this particular movie, but it isn't him. And you know what? He did a very good job. He brought his own vibe to the scene because, like, on these moments, there's a lot of very calm, relaxing music that really soothes the moments where you forget that there's technically horrible shit going on here.
Yeah. It definitely stood out to me for music stuff I haven't heard. I guess then again, mostly hear generic Hollywood music these days. It tends to be like try to be all epic sounding and shit.
Yeah, like they make all these talks about stuff like cybernetic aspects. I mean, stuff like Shocker and Nazi organization and all this sounds so relaxing and casual. And it's done in the right way because technically how they're reacting, how they're interacting at that moment in time, it is. But when it comes to the music in general, you still have those new versions of old school Tokusatsu tracks. And a lot of those tracks, in my opinion, really take back to what made Kamen Rider. It really go back to what made that music very good. It honors them. But at the same time, it adds a new touch without just feeling like a remaster. So yeah, you have a perfect blend of relaxing, slice of life type music that also works with the beautiful imagery of the scenes, with also the more epic sounding score on the fight scenes that kind of goes back to the Showa Kamen Rider type style that went on.
Like, something like that.
Yeah, exactly. Like, for example, on that Beatles scene where the fight's getting, like, that's tracks on multiple fights. But on the Wasp moment, I feel like the build-up there with how the characters are just getting ready to fight, and there's a lot of tension here. That's where that particular...
Flash, it was like two Flashes fighting.
Yeah. What was your thoughts on that fight?
It was pretty wild.
Yeah, exactly. Like, when I first seen it,
could you imagine sitting there trying to track these two fighting on the roof and hoping to God you don't get up cut by one of them?
Yeah, exactly. I'll admit, when I first watched that fight in the theater, I kind of had mixed feelings on it, but now getting a better look at it, but now thinking more about that fight, I like the experimental vibe Anno went with it since, as she stated, they're both simply just they're both bugs of nature. Like wasps prey on grasshoppers, and that and that I think made for something really interesting because the way they were fighting wasn't the typical Kamen Rider type combat. So yeah, that actually grew on me, and there was even a style of lighting and movement that kind of went with this more stylistic choice that I thought really worked with Anno.
Yeah, that was probably the best fight in the whole movie, honestly.
And of course, then you had obviously. Well, before I bring up anything, I don't want to be the majority of this review, so mention another highlight to you, and go into it.
I guess we could be talking about Mask Rider Zero.
Yeah, Masked Rider Zero. You go into first. I want you to dive into your points.
You know, finding out he's the brother of that one girl. I keep forgetting her name for the life of me. Ruriko, right?
Yeah.
You know, finding out, you know, these two are the ones that end up creating this thing that she described as hell. She ended up making it, thinking this is paradise, when, you know, she got more exposed to the world, realizing, no, it's polar opposite of that, what they made. It's something absolutely nightmarish and hellish, and, you know, finding out that they just basically killed those guys, kind of, sort of put them like a state of living death. They're more dead, but they're not at the same time because they got, what's that thing, the Kamen Riders and they're powered by the monsters? I forgot its name.
What'd you say again?
What was the thing called that the Kamen Riders use to like power up and whatever? And apparently, like every little being has it.
The Henshin belts.
Not the belt. Well, it's the thing that powers those belts.
I forgot the name of that since every Rider show has a different name for it, and this clearly is using the name of the original, which I have not watched.
Okay, well, yeah, you know, they're powered by that. And he's still thinking, you know, oh, this is the best thing to do for humanity and all that shit. Because, like I said, every one of these villains have like their own view on what they should do with humanity and happiness to it. When in reality, you know, like I said, completely horrible stuff.
Alice said, "What's your thought? What's your opinion on Godzilla X Mothra? Are you talking about Godzilla versus Mothra or Mothra versus Godzilla? Like, I love both of those movies. That's very like, yeah, those both movies I find to be legendary in my opinion. But yeah, I can agree with you on that. And in terms of her relationship with her brother, like, this is another thing about Midori Kawa that I really liked, is a lot, like, you could tell she had a lot of connections, well, not a lot, but two connections with three, because her father too, but you had her father, and which left not Gorgom, why do I keep mixing up with fucking Gorgom? Shocker. The thing about Shocker, you had her best friend being the Wasp, and you had her brother. Both she had faith in would come with her, but neither of them did because both were under their own bullshit brainwashing that kind of got them stuck in their own area. It got them stuck in their own ways,
That stuff I was thinking of was the prana life energy.
Okay. And since they were stuck in their own ways, there was it also brought more emotion between her and Takashi Hongo. And with that whole fight, you oh wait, I was reading a comment. No, the love story thing that people created. This is so dumb. Oh, you mean the stupid oh yeah, you mean that stupid shipping stuff? Yeah, that stuff is cringe. It's furry garbage. But yeah, when it created some really good drama with that, and it also makes sense that she would have some connections there, because in the end, it also shows that she is only human. And like every human, even though she has disagreements with these people, she's going to want to try to convince them. And in some ways, she helped them change their ways, and some, like the Wasp, while hated doing what she did and ended up getting stuck until that led to her downfall, that whole fight there, and she still ended up changing at the end due to what Takashi Hongo chose to giving her a chance. And then you had her brother, Kamen Rider Zero, which was fucking badass. And also, I gotta say about the gore in this movie, it's the selling point of this movie isn't the gore like, say, Amazon Riders, Kamen Rider Black Sun, or stuff like that, but it is here, and when it's there, I mean, when they show it, they hold no punches. Like, one of the things I love about this movie is you can tell Anno was making a movie here. It's not a TV show. It is a feature-length film with a budget. And when he's punching the grunts from Shocker, I almost called him Gorgum again. You have these stuff like these bone-crushing things from the sound effects that almost feel Mortal Kombat-like. And the way of their skulls get crushed is actually very fucking convincing, and how they managed to shoot and edit that in such a fast pace was pretty ridiculous. And even how they would add that in moments like the bat thing, where he would step on him and you would see the blood leaking from the foot, that was pretty good too. But that was another thing that I really liked about the movie. And also another thing about it is with that type of combat, with that Rider, Kamen Rider Zero, what really shocked me here was when he started beating the fuck out of the two other riders, and the blood just started pouring out of their mouths when they were wearing the mask, and that stuff was actually
that was when Zero was starting to like beat the shit out of him when he transformed.
Yeah, yes, and here's the thing, like, Kamen Riders are always supposed to be portrayed to be very powerful heroes, but here they really went all out. Since it's a movie, they were able to show that better than ever, because every punch from both the impact of the gore, the sound effects and such, you feel a sense of power in their fist. And when Zero was able to do that to two of the other riders, more blood and more power made him seem more threatening.
Man was a menace. He just kept ass whooping both of them.
Yep.
He was definitely final boss energy, the way how he was fighting.
Yeah, exactly. And how they were fighting, like, the way they were fighting with the impact of the punch, it was almost Mortal Kombat-like, which you would, in a way where you would get, ooh, that had to hurt.
That's why I want to see a Kamen Rider for Mortal Kombat.
Yeah, I do too. Like, you can... There's
Amazon's Shin, or Black Moon, I don't give a shit. Black Sun, I mean.
Black Sun and Shadow Moon, all of that.
Any of those people would be great for Mortal Kombat.
I agree. And also, when it comes to the performances of this movie, I also gotta say, everyone here did an incredible job. They did this philosophical type of tone they use in their way of speaking. There is a lot of effort put into it. Like, even after a certain thing happens that caught me off guard, and I'm not going to spoil it since it's a pretty big deal, you can tell when looking into Takashi Hongo's face, while he's trying to play it off stoic, you can tell while in his eyes, he's ready to cry while talking to the agents. And that's good acting, because he's able to portray that stoicism, enough stoicism where you can tell he's trying to hide it, but still showing enough emotion to show that he is hurt.
Yeah.
And another thing I want to mention... I'll let you go first. Like, whenever you have anything on your mind, Aaron, feel free to say it. Like...
who is your favorite out of the augments?
The augments? Are we counting the Kamen Riders, or just going on about the enemies?
From Shocker.
Okay, from Shocker. I'm gonna have to go with... the Wasp. I thought, first of all, she's hot.
The Wasp probably was the one that stood out to me the most.
Yeah, first of all, she's hot. Second,
followed by Zero, or I guess the Butterfly Augment, whatever you want to call him. And are we going to talk about number 2, Kamen Rider?
Yeah, exactly. You go first.
You know, he was pretty interesting. He wanted to try to be this lone wolf shit, but at the same time, he wasn't going to just leave you there to die. He came in to help them all out and stuff when needed. And he was sitting there talking. I remember how he was sitting there talking about when he was fighting. I keep forgetting his freaking name. We were just talking about him.
Not good with names, are ya?
Hongo. When Hongo was fighting him, he was all like, "Oh, you fight really good. I like that." And all that.
Yeah,
shit.
exactly. And he was doing it in his very stoic tone, like he didn't give a fuck.
Yeah.
but that's what helped make him threatening.
And then the bro like fucked his leg up to the point where Peter Griffin was like, ah. And then that Civilian guy shows up in, I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't want to go too many spoilers.
Yeah, exactly. I see what you mean there. And also, when it comes to all that type of fighting and such, there was I'll go into a bit here. With him and Midorikawa, it was nice that Midorikawa was able to kind of like this. I don't see this as a major spoiler since people probably already thought from the poster that they were working together from the beginning. But how Midorikawa ends up getting into the hacks in his mind where he no longer works for Shocker since they brainwashed him, and that's how he kind of works with Takashi Hongo. And as a result, while Takashi Hongo ends up hurt over something, he on the other hand ends up seeing Takashi Hongo as more like a very close friend, since he was the one who helped him get out of that brainwashing stage that Shocker put him in. And and even at the end, after what happens, he's still willing to go on this journey to take out the rest of Shocker by going through his own tragedy.
Well, I mean, Shocker isn't done yet. Remember, they're still going after him, even after.
Yep, and one of the things I liked about the ending of the movie is, well, it ends where there could be a sequel, and Anno has shown interest in doing one. It's not like if the sequel would never happen, that you'd be like, man, this never got finished. As it concludes enough, but at the same time, it's still, as it does conclude enough, but at the same time, there's still stuff left intact.
Maybe concluded decently, but at the same time, it's like, we're going to do a sequel.
Yeah, exactly.
I know some people aren't a fan of maybe leaving it to where it's obviously going to be a sequel, but I don't mind it.
Yeah. I'm hoping that, like I said, he appears in a Black Sun RX, but we'll see. And one of the things that seen people bring up is, like, I know I know when the trailer was released, there was some that were on about it just looks like the TV shows, but it ain't. But that's because it ain't entirely digital. Which, here's the thing, which I'll get into that more. But the Rider outfit is much more. The Rider outfit is much more shiny, and it literally moves its mouth while talking. A detail that wasn't necessary, mind you, but it was very much appreciated that they added that extra thing there. So no, it doesn't just look like another one of the TV shows because they put a focus on the suits instead of CGI. The thing is, the suits themselves, which are supposed to be suits, they do more than what they do in a TV show. And that's not bashing the TV shows. They're TV shows. They have a lesser budget. They are worked on weekly. And they obviously are much more limited. This is a movie, so they were able to go a bit further in how things were done, and I very much appreciated that. And that's why they look like costumes, is because despite the fact they are mutations, they are like Spider-Man in that regard. They have animal/bug-like DNA in them, but they're also wearing suits. But when flesh is shown, like the lizard thing created by the Angel of Death, which I might add that was pretty neat because it goes deeper into the Nazi aspect of the original Kamen Rider. I don't know if the Angel of Death was mentioned in the original show or even the manga that just took up a lot from, apparently. But either way, it was cool that they did mention the Angel of Death in ways that kind of brings it more into reality and really says what Shocker is like. And even with stuff like the people leaving Shocker, that does kind of go into the fact of how people would be treated if, well, they left the Nazis. They would be seen as traitors and they would be out to be assassinated. But the thing is, when the flesh is shown, the detail looks in some ways almost like, it's almost hard to believe they didn't use CGI for some of the elements, like with that chameleon thing where some of the suit gets ripped off. The arm looks somewhat bony and has this very fleshy, scaly-like appearance to it. It's like, wow, they didn't need CGI for that? That's pretty cool.
Yeah. The Angel of Death Nazi scientist was Joseph Mengele.
Yeah. And that's why they mentioned him and on why the things in Shocker were created. And it was quite clever because he did a bunch of horrible experiments on people, and basically that's what Shocker does to people. They do a bunch of experiments and turn them into, well, no longer human. So it worked in this regard.
Times 10, like, they wanted to outright enslave everybody. They wanted to, like, put a freaking disease epidemic on everyone. Like, they didn't give a fuck.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't know. We should probably talk about anything you don't like about the movie.
Okay, so there's one thing I didn't really care for about this movie. And here's the thing I want to say. Like, this is the one thing, and this one thing here, while isn't horrible by any means with budget considered, it still could have been a lot better. And it's like, Anno, you have a masterpiece here. You could have just patched this one aspect up. Why, bro? But it's the CGI. Now, I'm usually very defensive of CGI and stuff like this, because usually it has to do with budget. Huh?
You don't have to tell me that.
Usually it has a thing to do with budget and the amount of use that's with its budget. Like in Shin Ultraman's case, I defend it because it's $2 million. Its budget is $2 million less than Shin Godzilla, and it uses it for a lot more things than Shin Godzilla. But even for that, they pushed a lot of boundaries with what they've had, where at points it looks like Hollywood, others it didn't, but still, despite it not looking like Hollywood at those points, they had to cut it somewhere with what they've had, and it was still very much appreciated. Here, they use much less CGI, and when it's used, it looks like the worst parts of Shin Ultraman. It's somewhat janky, it doesn't move that fluid, and it doesn't have the most detail, like when, even on the first fight with the man spider, the way his back, there isn't a lot of detail there. It almost looks like a video game from the PlayStation 3 era, one of those Kamen Rider games. I don't want to go that far. That's going too extreme. But it doesn't look nearly as detailed as it should, and it's pretty disappointing.
Now, when they start like running or jumping off something, it kind of does look corny looking.
Yeah, I don't want to say it looks I don't want to say it looks abysmal, since again, there's still a budget here, and there was definitely a lot of action scenes in it with that budget for, but still, they've done better. Come on. And that's why I think that part is disappointing. It does a lot like what Sam Raimi's Spider-Man did, the first one. It didn't have the best CGI effects, so what it tries to do, it uses fast combat, far shots, and some really good choreography to try to hide it. And I will say, a lot like Raimi's first Spider-Man movie, this does a fine job for the most part. Just when you pause it, you'll notice it looks very fake. And even in the fast pace and great cinematography, it still doesn't hide it completely. It just makes it where it's serviceable. But it is rather disappointing on the usage. It's not bad enough where I can't enjoy the fight scenes. Mixing that with the great Tokusatsu action, the edits, and all that stuff, I'm still able to enjoy it. But it is kind of disappointing in that regard. The CGI is.
Yeah. I wasn't too crazy that he didn't even get the chance to fight this Scorpion one.
Yeah, we seen her doing all this shit, cutting through these guys' throats and blood splurging out like a fucking horror movie, but that never happened. At the same time, though, I can see what they were probably doing there wasn't probably... I don't think they were building up towards a threat. They probably were just having her to show one of the threats, to show that there are more threats of Gorgon than what's being present. And I could see
Gorgon again, you dipshit.
Yeah, shocker, whatever. That are present. And I wouldn't put it past her being in a sequel, but it does show that Shocker does have more enemies. But yeah, it would have been nice to have seen that. I was expecting it. But I wouldn't say it was...
Kamen Rider Black off your mind for 1 second!
Oh, God. But that's something I do think, yeah. I wouldn't say I was bothered by that decision, though. It's just something I think they could have done, but it's probably being saved for what a possible sequel can be.
Right, but I'm just oh, they make her badass, and then she still gets taken down by normal guys. Seriously.
Yeah.
I don't know, I didn't really completely pay attention to that part because these stupid people in the theater were making me sit to my correct seat or whatever. Like, oh my god, there's like everyone was moving around trying to figure out where their fucking seats are at in the fucking theater. When, at least the one I was at. I don't know about how your theater was experience.
Oh, mine was pretty fine. I automatically knew where I was supposed to sit, which is why I just sat there. I didn't know that this was your first time with foreign films though. Like, for example, when I was going to every time I go to a theater, the seats are always chosen for me. I didn't know your theater wasn't like that.
No, I bought mine, and then everyone was trying to freaking figure out the reserve seating.
Okay.
It was a shit show. Everyone just kept moving around the theater, and I was like, at one point, I was about to be like, if they keep bugging me about this shit, I'm about to just fucking leave and say, sorry, Joey, I couldn't see the whole movie because everyone's acting like a jackass in the theater.
Yeah, but hey, at least you stayed.
Yeah.
Also, I think something that people could also think, the choreography is incredible. Like, it's Hideaki Anno, obviously. Like, for example, some of the shots in this show, you kind of get the usual Anno shots of far away and more cinematic angles. Like, for example, when you're watching Midorikawa reload her gun and drop the used magazine, it looks like we're watching one of those type of actual crime footage or something you'd see on somewhere like Live Leak. And I think that's the vibe Anno is going for, especially given the more war-driven tone this one has. And then, of course, you have all these shots like the quick fighting, the edits of like he mixed his normal fight choreography of stuff like Shin Godzilla and Shin Ultraman, but blended it with old 70s Tokusatsu martial arts.
Yep. I'm just saying, the people from John Wick making a Kamen Rider movie.
I'd be down for that completely.
Exactly.
And then, of course, other aspects that I gotta say it being a movie benefits from is other things that I wouldn't necessarily think about. It's there. Like, for example, when Hongo jumps down and saves Midorikawa, like grabs her, you get this angel wings type effects added. And again, that's not something I would think about usually, since the Kamen Rider TV shows don't add that type of thing. They're a little bit more raw, and that's not a knock against the TV shows. Again, I want to say this over and over. They're TV shows, but when you see that here, it reminds you that you're watching something on a more grand scale.
Grandoy scale, might.
Alice said, question, if there was ever a TV show where Godzilla monsters can talk to each other, who would you let voice Godzilla? You can turn on Godzilla and Gojiban, those exist. But honestly, I don't know how to answer that question, because the thought of Godzilla monsters talking to each other outside of goofy moments like in Godzilla vs. Gigan, I wouldn't want to see it, to be honest.
That would be horrifying.
Yeah, it would.
The only way it made sense in like a realistic way was with Kong and Godzilla vs. Kong when they were doing the sign language, like, apes
Exactly.
are intelligent enough to do that in real life, so it makes sense that he could do that.
Yeah, exactly.
So yeah, I don't know what else I want to say about this movie.
All I can say is it has an extended run in the United States due to high demand, because apparently there is enough of a Kamen Rider community here. And I gotta say, if your theater is playing this or watch it. It's my favorite movie of the year. It's nearly perfect. And the things that it doesn't get perfect, I want to cry that they didn't get those things perfect. Because the thing is like, Anno, you could have had a 10 out of 10 on your hand. Everything here. Oh! But, as a result, what we got here is amazing. Amazing in every way. Anno keeps releasing these bangers. I hope he releases a sequel to Shin Kamen Rider, Shin Ultraman. I hope he releases a Shin Super Sentai. I want to see it all. He really does understand what makes this stuff so good. And even though it mostly takes itself seriously, there's jokes added, and the humor that is added, it feels more natural. Like, I often forget how good humor is done, because here's stuff like the MCU butchered Hollywood. Because stuff like the MCU, they basically just throw shit at the wall and see what sticks. Sometimes the jokes land, sometimes they don't, and Hollywood as a whole is now doing that to check off a list. Here, a lot like the previous Shin movies, even Shin Godzilla, the humor comes naturally. Like, it comes in a moment. Like, the interactions of these movies are more realistic, for lack of a better term. So when the jokes come in, they're not overly goofy. They're not overly goofy, and they occur at a more natural way. That's why, and they even complement the plot, which is why I say they did a really good job. Special effects, you did have some really good fight choreography. There's only one moment I think the choreography could have slowed down a bit, like on the fight with Kamen Rider Zero at the end. I feel like it focuses too much on that very shaky shot for too fucking long. But as a whole, without a few minor flaws, like, I'm going to have to give it a 9 out of 10. It's very close to perfect in terms of as far as movies go. But due to a few noticeable things that could have been done better, I can't give it a 10. I want to give it a 10 so fucking bad. But I can't, as that would be biased on my end, since I try to be as fair to media as possible. And my motto is this: if the flaw is more than a blink and you miss a detail or anything along those lines, simply like Godzilla's tail falling off in the background of Godzilla versus Space Godzilla, or those cars driving towards the monsters in Godzilla vs. Destroyer, those being nitpicks, I can't give a 10 out of 10, so it's a 9. I want to give it a 10. If I was rating by my love factor alone, it'd be a 10 out of 10. And if I was rating by every other aspect besides those few minor things considered, it would be. But as a whole, incredible film. Condensed the story into a really good runtime. I loved it.
Yeah, I'm going to say it's between an 8 and a 9 for me.
Go into your final thoughts along with the score.
It was really good, aside from some of the CGI looking goofy as hell and pretty bad a couple of times. And,
like the bat.
Oh god, the bat was. Yeah, that I just remember that. Yeah, the bat was pretty fucking bad. I'll admit it. I'm sorry, y'all.
The kill was pretty good though when the rider
it was decent.
No, the kill was pretty good. Like when the rider stomped its back in and then we lifted its foot up, we saw from its perspective the blood leaking from it. From the boot.
Yeah, and I don't know. I thought it was weird that I know I've been going on about the Scorpion Lady a couple times already, but yeah. Other than that, yeah. I don't know, I guess pretty bad CGI in a couple parts. The movie was overall pretty goddamn good in my opinion.
Yeah, absolutely incredible. And also, another thing I want to say, this is another example of technically a really good live-action manga adaptation. Because this is a reimagining of both the 71 TV show and the manga based on the 71 TV show. But nobody's ever going to take that into account because it destroys their narrative.
Yeah.
But, do you want to go into spoilers?
Yeah, spoilers! Let's go for the life of me. Can I remember her fucking name? My God. So yeah, I've been making fun of you for not remembering fucking Gargom.
You and Shocker.
Gargom and Shocker. I can't remember the characters. The second fucking life's name. I was
say
back to the cat. Ryoko's death and then her will and all that shit. That shit was pretty fucking sad. Yeah.
Exactly. Like, when I was watching that in the theater, it hit me so hard in the chest, especially with how it affected Takashi Hongo, because my favorite part of this movie, maybe even more so than the Kamen Rider action, is their interactions together, because it's so fucking wholesome, well-developed, and actually benefited from the action scenes. And when it comes to those types of moments, when they killed her off, it was unexpected, and it didn't feel forced, because it actually shown the new threat of the movie, which was a creation from the Angel of Death that was actually pretty threatening. And the thing about the whole thing is, it visibly affected Takashi Hongo as a character. Like afterwards, when he was looking into everything, it was hurting him more, and it helped develop him too. Because originally he hated killing, but this made him, and I forget the other writer's name. I want to say there's a misconception that when you can't remember names,
for number 2.
Okay, thank you. But I do want to say, there's a misconception of when you can't remember names, it means the character wasn't good. No, that's bullshit. Some people just aren't good with names, and I'm one of them.
I'm only proof of that, and I have to sit here and keep looking up at the names.
Yeah. It ends up making it where those types of dynamics work more because he ends up feeling bad for Takashi Hongo. And as a result, since she cleared him of his brainwashing, that helped give him more motivation to avenge her, that gave Hongo motivation to avenge her, and it made it where he was stronger. And as a result, it just really...
Go on, but I'm going to say something after you're done.
Okay. It just really worked, and on their fight scenes, it made it where he even wanted to come and kind of go after her brother, which was also affected by it. And also, now I will let you say what you say about this guy. I was about to move on to something else.
I just thought it was curious how you said, oh, they want to avenge her, but they were like, no, we're not doing this for revenge. We're just doing it to stop the guy and for her.
Yeah. Okay, you're right. That missed me. But I was typing notes, so stuff like that happens.
You're taking notes, and I'm just going off of memory right now.
Hey, I guess going off of memory in that regard kind of benefits in some ways.
Yeah.
Because you never take your eyes off the screen while doing that.
But you want to go into detail about, like, I guess how all the I guess what would be called the kaijin is what they would be.
They're augments, I believe they're called. Yeah, I
do you want to go into their little details about how, like, I guess they view their destruction on humanity, all the hard shit they want to do to people?
Yeah, exactly. I'll let you go first since you're the one that brought it up.
So the spider one, wasn't he all about, like, wanting to kill people and that made him happy and all that?
Yeah, like I said, Shocker are basically the Nazis, even back then. Like, I think even those grunt things that are in every show and movie like this, I think they even raised their arms up like Hitler at one point. And also, and when it came to that, like, doing
cancel now. You said Hitler.
But when it came to that whole thing, it was very well executed, as every one of them, like, they enjoyed what they were doing, but some of them were indoctrinated, like, for example, the Wasp and her brother. Like, they meant well, but they were under a very dark and vile leader that just kind of affected their view of the world. But the
path of evil is paved by good intentions.
Yeah, exactly. Which people like that did exist back in the day, where there were just decent people that were brainwashed by horrible leaders.
Yeah. The bat dude wanted to cause a plague upon everyone, and bats are known to carry like horde shit. I mean, that's where COVID came from, apparently.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, I probably shouldn't get into that too much. Well, now some people are trying to say, "Oh, it came from a lamb" or some shit.
Yeah,
that's all I'm going to really say on it.
Yeah,
but,
and that whole thing with the spider, I thought he was pretty cool. Like, he had this very calm, stoic demeanor that made it where he was cool, but also delivered his lines in a very intimidating demeanor that just made him a more threatening opponent, in my personal opinion. And I think how he was taken down happened to be some of the coolest.
Yeah. I did thought it was weird how everyone basically kind of just died, like they turned into bath bubbles and shit. Like I said, if that's from the original series, okay, fair enough. But like I said, I'm new to Kamen Rider, so if that's how it happened in the original show, fair enough.
Well, that whole fight right there, reason why they turned into bubbles because...
Well, I mean, everyone, when everybody died, that's what happened, is what I'm trying to say. If that's what happened in the original show, then okay, fair enough.
Yeah, but I'm just saying, reason why that happens here, at least, I don't know if that's the way in the original show or the manga adaptation of the original show, but that was there, and I liked how they justified it there, because... Gorgom are basically Shocker are basically Nazis, and
we're gonna meme you right now.
and they're of course, as a result, they're like a government type thing. So they're trying to hide all this of what's currently happening from the general public. So whenever they die, their bodies are programmed to automatically disintegrate. So no evidence is left
Oh
behind.
yeah, I
thought
remember
that was,
that. I remember them talking about that.
yeah, that was well justified. And of course, the talk in this type of thing that I thought was really good was, like I said, exposition. The exposition was done right. Like, many people, when they hear exposition, they think it's bad, but people forget that not all is bad. This was one of the things that did it very, very, very well, in my opinion. And when it comes to, okay, I'll let you go on.
Yeah, they all have like their own little twisted view on humanity, except for the chameleon guy. He just wanted revenge for his spider bro.
Yeah, exactly. And the chameleon guy was he was a villain that I loved and hated because he was cool and you understood why he was out to get revenge, but at the same time he was also violent.
Really started to like.
Yeah,
that's decent shit done right there.
Yeah, he's a character that you hate, but you also like him because he's cool, and he's got a reason on why he's doing it, but he's still doing horrible shit, programmed by horrible people, failing to understand why his horrible friend was killed.
Yeah. I felt like they could have done more of that invisible cloak thing he had, too.
Yeah, they could have.
I guess there's another thing I could throw in. It's like, oh, he just shows up, and then once he stabs the girl, he straight up fucking throws it away.
Yeah, they could have.
They could have had him like trying to fuck with them and like trying to find him while they're fighting him, and then like they end up like I guess hear him or some shit, and they see him and then they kill him. I don't know. Still just not right fighting.
Yeah, exactly. Another thing that I will say is this one was even more unexpected. Was the death? I don't know if this happens in the original show or the manga, but the death of Takashi Hongo. That really surprised me, but it worked considering that that Midorikawa also got killed, and like what she did, he was planning to do his goal was to finish off what she started. That was his life goal, and he did, but he also ended where she did, which also lent off to what's his name again, Aaron?
What guy?
Writer, the second writer.
Hayato Ichimonji.
Yes, Hayato Ichimonji, which also passed on to Hayato's motivations of finishing off where Takashi Hongo left off. And that's really good because it gives each character their very own motivation to keep going and keep fighting. And while it killed off both Midorikawa and Takashi Hongo in a sense, they're also still alive in a sense. And the twist of that was very well done because you had all this drama built from it, but they still have this very spiritual life form that goes into these helmets called prana. And it still doesn't take away the sadness factor that their physical bodies got fucked, but it also does create some relief that that they're, in a way, they still are around. And it also served a great purpose to the plot rather than being a cop-out, as it's also what's shown Kamen Rider Zero that what he was doing was wrong because he had a talk with his sister, and it brought him to tears, which was crazy. So considering this guy was stoic, so being around her and seeing him start crying, it hits you too, because it shows that he, even someone like him, felt guilty.
Yep. God, the more you're talking about this movie, the more you make me realize, hey, yeah, I know a lot of our circle likes to make fun of you for being a fucking borderline weeaboo, but yeah, you're right on this one. Yeah, this movie was really fucking good. The more you make me look back and look at it.
It is. Like, that experience, like, I was expecting really good, but I did not know it would be this good. I'm sad I can't give it a 10 out of 10, because the thing is, every other aspect
goes in... characters are in here 10 for me.
Yeah, the characters, those are a 10. Like, every moment of them. Like, the fact that it made something with all this dark stuff happening, it made their interactions, it brought you in a safe space. It felt very slice of life-like. Oh man, it made me feel something that a lot of stuff don't. That is great stuff right there. And this, in terms of the shooting, I do want to say this and Shin Ultraman
There's
are
a
the
couple
best
of
shot.
parts where I'm like, oh, that's a freaking straight out of a video game replay.
Yeah,
Especially during the part where he's fighting like those locust versions of the Kamen Riders or whatever. Those are like black ones, and I'm not talking
Yeah.
about like, from the show. You know, I'm talking about the ones that were fighting him before he fought
Yeah.
Zero for the final time.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Those are the. But I will say this: while the CGI could have been a lot better, and I will say the CGI wasn't good, it didn't bother me while watching. It's still an objective flaw, but my experience was not hurt, if that makes sense.
I'll completely admit when I notice it, I usually just look at it and laugh.
Yeah, that's understandable, but that's just one little thing out of an overall incredible movie. I do hope if we get a sequel, Anno improves that aspect, but yeah, like even when I first watched it in the theater, I was like, this is an incredible movie. But now that I think about it, I'm loving it even more because there's a few other things I perceived as flaws, like for example, the battle with that wasp, but after discussing it with you, it's like, you know what? That fight was actually pretty lit.
I thought I wasn't talking too much, but I guess I am.
No, you're talking fair. You're talking fair enough. Like, yeah, I'm the one talking most since I'm working off notes, but you still are providing quite a bit to the review, I think. You're providing your own perspective, your own take, and all of that.
I mean, we're talking about it. If only we had somebody in here that had seen the original show all the way through.
Yeah, because I haven't seen
That would be the only way that this fucking stream would be a lot better right now.
Yeah, because even the big Kamen Rider fan that I am, I have not watched that original show yet. I do want to, just there's other very well-praised Kamen Rider entries I want to see that aren't as long as it.
Yeah, we were talking about just seeing. You wanted to show me Black Sun.
Yeah,
Man, I guess I'll watch Amazon's next, the remake of it.
Yeah,
reimagining.
Yeah, watch Amazon's too. Amazon's is incredible. So is Black Sun. Both are absolutely really, really good. I think you'll love them, especially if you like this movie. Though I'd say this movie's more of a balance of fun and serious. Those are mostly serious. But you know what? That's not a bad thing.
No, it's not.
But yeah.
I felt like it was mostly serious with some comedic spots.
Yeah, I agree. It's kind of like Shin Godzilla in that regard. Yeah. Now, I do want to say, it's part of the effects I want to compliment. It's weird considering the budget this is on is much less than Hollywood, but that explosion at the beginning, that gave me a new standard for explosions, because I have never seen that before. Like, when the explosion's done, you get all this rubble and all the detail of it thrown in our face. I never seen that, because usually in these big Hollywood blockbusters, and even in other films, even in films from Japan, you just get this explosion. You see the explosion, but you don't really see much of the rubble going everywhere during it. Here, we get that, and that's good. That's attention to detail and effects there.
I remember that part where that cave collapsed on those one biker dudes at the beginning of G.N.O when Baragon attacked.
Yeah, that too. Wait, why are they taking lower budget places from Japan to add detail to explosions?
That was from a movie from 20 years ago, too, is what's funny.
Yeah, like, I've never once seen a detail from an American movie with that, because usually with Hollywood movies, you just see this big explosion, but none of the rubble. Like, have you noticed that?
That's something really, honestly, I haven't really sit there and thought about.
I haven't thought about it till I watched this movie. And then I was like, wait, this movie's a much lower budget than Hollywood, and they added that much detail. Like, that's better than Michael Bay, and Michael Bay is known for explosions.
Could you imagine if Michael Bay directed a Godzilla movie?
I can watch it, but it definitely would be in the dumb fun category.
Yeah, like his designs and like the action parts are amazing, but do not expect to try to take a good story. Okay, now the first Transformers was actually pretty decent.
Yeah, a lot of people actually like that for what it is.
Yeah, the first Transformer movie was really pretty good, but yeah, everything else after that, oh boy.
Yeah.
I feel like what's the new Transformer movie? They're really pushing hard that they're bringing in Unicron.
Yeah, they really are. They really are. I still want to see Beast Wars, because Beast Wars does look like fun. But anyway, you have anything more to say about Shin Kamen Rider?
No, not really.
Yeah, same here. But incredible movie. If you have it in your area, it's said to be
Go
on
see it, enough said.
Yeah, it's supposed to be on again at June 5th, so please keep an eye out for that if you haven't seen it yet. You won't regret it. Anno just keeps releasing bangers in the Shin Japan Heroes Universe. I am looking forward to seeing if anything more comes from it. That said, this is Gojin the Makai Phantom, leaving the building.
Go see this movie, goddammit.